And I would like to do this relatively quickly tonight, so I don't think this is going to be a long meeting. But let me just uh, go through things. So, following the guidance issued by the Commonwealth in March of 2023 regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing Zoom video conferencing technology. So, uh, just a roll. Sarah,
Aye.
Gavin,
Aye. Here.
Marty,
Here.
Nina,
Here.
Mish,
Here.
and Dick.
Here.
Great, and I'm here. And looks like Kevin is also here. So we're just calling a roll.
Sorry about that. Had a
No
reboot.
problem. No problem. All right, great. So I'm hoping that we can do this in certainly less than an hour. Uh, I wanted to review the schedule again and just talk a little bit about the format for the budget reviews. So I think we have basically gotten confirmation from everybody for the days. So just to go through the schedules, we can send this out. Michelle, send a copy to you for the minutes. But
Okay.
so on February 9th, we start at 6. We have fire and ambulance at 6:05, the police at 6:45, library at 7:30, Concom at 7:55, and 8:20 Board of Health. So that's the first session. Second session is 2:23, and 6:05 is DPW. I have down Dover schools and regional schools at 7:05 and 7:35. Dawn thinks that the regional schools can be covered in the meeting on 2/11, the joint meeting. So we're just going to do the Dover schools on the 23rd, and that'll be about 45 minutes. Then sustainability at roughly 8 o'clock, council on aging at 8:30, and then adjourn after that. And on 2/25, Parks and Rec at 6:05, capital budget at 6:50, although Bud Barry is not certain he'll have all his data by then, but told him we have him present anyway. And then followed by the capital budget, followed by the planning board, and then townhouse select board at 8:20. So those are the 3 nights. I thought it'd be worth spending a few minutes just talking about the format, the email, which I'll also send around that we sent to the different presenters. Ask them to include at least 3 slides. One, an overview of their mission. One presenting between 1 and 4 KPI, and then one talking about the budget request for this year. So I have gotten a couple of kind of minor questions from people about that format. It seems as though people are at least seemingly happy to comply with that the kind of arrangement. I do think it's probably worth reaching out to the departments that you are liaisons for to just ask the department heads, committee chairs, if they have any questions or concerns about the format. I think a number of you have already done that, have copied me on some of them. So I think most of them have a sense of what they want to do, but I think there is some people at least have a few questions. So we did in the email to people scheduling them, we did offer up the fact that the committee members would serve as a resource for their presentations if they had any questions about how to go about things. I think the biggest questions are likely to be on KPI. Seems that that's the kind of issue on which most people seem to have the greatest questions. So I think we're going to be, if I recall our discussion, I think we decided we would be happy if they come up with any KPI. Our goal was to have everybody have at least one. I think people seem genuinely to be embracing the idea, so it feels pretty good. There may be questions primarily about, well, some of the things that have come up is the difference between kind of metrics as opposed to KPI, that sort of thing. So I think there may be room for discussion with people, but my sense is that we're going to get the vast majority of people at least making an effort. Any comments about your own experience talking to people about this?
Exactly as you said, I found that the groups weren't clear on what a KPI actually is, and we're providing sort of statistics from the past year.
Yeah.
So that's something that will be a like learning process, clearly.
Yeah. Marty, you interacted with the chief, the fire chief?
Yeah, it's similarly a work in process, I guess, is how I would
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
Parks and Rec
we're not getting,
didn't have any problem with it from what I can remember, Gavin. I mean, they were maybe some of they count people that visit the community center, so they were kind of on board with measuring stuff.
Yeah.
Planning board seemed receptive.
yep,
So I think they wanted to also do some retrospective KPI.
yep,
Yeah, I think it'll be one thing to be able to come up with a KPI, but then the next part of the conversation, at least from my perspective, is how do you benchmark that? What do you benchmark it against?
yep,
How do you indicate whether that's something good or needs to be improved, or
yep,
where is it? It can't be just an item in isolation. But I think at this point, if we can just get some consensus around what a KPI is and what a useful one might be, then you can take it to the next level.
yeah, I agree. Any other comments? All right. The only other thing I really wanted to go over today is I actually resonated with Kevin's comment last week about uh, being somewhat overwhelmed with the budget presentations. I felt that way all 3 years I've been on the Warrant Committee.
Well, thanks for that validating comment then.
So I thought it might be useful to actually go through Michael's presentation and see if just by going through it, we can kind of get a better sense of for ourselves as to uh, what the issues are that we want to go over. So
And again, none of this included, this did include the capital budget or not?
so there was only mention in the well, we'll go through it, but
All right.
at the end,
It includes everything we know of. So it includes capital expenditures too.
Gotcha. Thanks.
so can everybody see this? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna skip down on the schedule and all. Um,
Yeah, even understanding what these definitions are would be helpful.
okay, so wait a second, I just screwed this up. All right. Uh, so this is Michael's first slide, which was on revenues, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands what the terms are. Um, so first line is the tax levy. Is that clear, or is that
Is that just property taxes?
that is just property taxes, basically?
Okay.
And just to be clear, that's the theoretical max we could do based on Prop 2.5,
No.
because you then have the excess levy beneath it subtracting from it. So
Uh, yeah. So I think uh, this is all sources of revenue. So excess levy capacity doesn't uh, uh, I think the tax levy, the 43 million is what we would be generating in property tax. That's my understanding.
It's what we could, that's the maximum amount that we could generate. But we currently are under the levy. So the 2.8 million is not, so the gross amount is 4.43 million. We take out the 2.8 because we haven't taxed to the levy limit.
Okay. And Robin, the 3 million in free cash is what we're currently budgeting to spend from our free cash.
Right. And what's in the 3 million, I put the model spreadsheet in there, but it is the special articles, the OPEB funding, the amount of free cash that the Board of Selectmen committed to the town to cover the Carroll debt.
Yep.
So that's what that is right now.
And the debt exclusion in this table is what we currently are budgeting.
No, we have existing on the books excluded
Okay.
debt.
All right.
So
And again, that term excluded debt means
it's not coming out of your tax levy. So if you have excluded debt, it is you carry that debt for the life of the asset that you bonded for. And in theory, that excluded debt, once it's paid off, your tax bill is reduced by that amount. So if you put debt into the tax levy, it's a permanent increase to taxes. If it's excluded debt, it rolls off once the debt is paid off.
And Robin, that 1,875,000, I assume, is the actual debt service in the outstanding debt that's been excluded, right? And the reason it went down was that roll
It's
off
been
of something related to the schools last year, right?
well also so a number of things happen. So the way municipal debt is paid isn't like your mortgage where you have the same payment and interest amount over the life of the debt.
Mhm.
It's actually we pay off more principal up front. So the debt is more expensive over the first 5 years and then it starts to roll off. So some of it is just the debt being pushed out. You know, we're getting to years where the total debt service is yet less, and then some of the debt has been paid for. And actually, the town treasurer is working on all the debt schedules, and we will, by the next meeting, we should be able to show that to you. So you'll be able to see all the debt and when it's going to be paid off.
So that 1,875,000 includes the unamortized, I'll say the amortized principal for that year, plus the interest on the total principal, the excluded debt.
So Kevin, is that clear?
Just clear as mud.
So it's part of the 2.5 law
Yeah,
that you can the town, if it needs to increase its levy, can do a and is that reaching its levy limit, can do a Prop 2.5 override, which would increase the levy limit.
right,
And that would be permanent. And then you would go it up 2.5% a year from that new baseline.
right, right.
With a capital exclusion or a debt exclusion, you can finance capital purchases without affecting your Prop 2.5 levy limit.
Yeah, it can be in excess of your 2.5 levy limit, but it requires a vote at town meeting as well as a ballot vote.
So you have to pass it the way you would pass a Prop 2.5 override, but it's specifically for capital purchases, and it doesn't permanently affect your levy limit the way a 2.5 override would. Once
Yep.
you've paid off your debt exclusion or your capital exclusion, your levy goes back to what it was,
Right, I
where it
understand.
would now be. Yeah.
Yeah. And then is that broken out on our quarterly property tax bill, or because
No,
it's
no,
okay. So
I don't believe so. I
okay.
can, yeah.
So when
I
I
don't
get
know. I always look at the total. I could look at my bill. Haven't,
I know I paid mine and threw it away.
yeah, I mean,
But
I just pay mine online, so I
that,
don't
yeah,
even.
I know. But I was just
Should,
curious about that if it actually breaks it out. But
I don't think it does, but I'm not certain.
okay.
Let me see if I can find my bill.
That's fine. I keep going. Yeah, okay. I
Okay.
understand now. Yeah.
So local receipts.
It doesn't. It just says total charges.
Okay.
Excuse me, just before you go on to the next one,
Yeah.
I'm still confused on debt exclusion. So, and that's, and that's being listed as a revenue. That's what I'm confused about.
Right, because it's additional, it is part of your property tax bill. So your property tax bill that you're paying includes the your the tax levy as well as excluded debt. So that's revenue that's coming in to the town of Dover. It's just two different buckets coming from your tax bill.
But
Okay.
the levy is governed by growth in the levy is governed by the Prop 2.5 rules, but the debt exclusion is not is the 2.5 limit does not apply to that.
Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you.
And but so then I just, so there's like a tax rate per thousand evaluation of your house, right? Isn't that kind of the way property taxes are
The
figured
mill,
out?
yep,
It is per thousand.
yep.
And so what I don't understand though is like if the tax levy is kind of what's permanent, I don't know, what are we at these days? Like $14 per thousand or 12 per thousand? I
I
don't know.
think it's 12 something.
Yeah.
So it's 12 something. So you're saying though a portion of that $12 per thousand is going to the debt exclusion?
No, the tax rate, the debt exclusion is completely different.
Right.
The tax rate is the levy. The debt exclusion is over and above things. You just pay for it from your same tax bill.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So basically, I've never paid attention to my tax bill, but on my tax bill, it gives me, no, it doesn't even show it. So the tax rate is $11.19.
Right. And so if you were to multiply that by the assessed value of your house, would you be a little bit shy of your total tax bill because there's another thing for the debt exclusion?
I would think so.
Okay.
Let me do the math. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think so.
Okay. Understand.
Okay, so going down, local receipts. People understand that?
That's just like car excise taxes and stuff.
Primarily excise tax, right?
Dog
And
licenses.
uh,
$15 a dog, you know.
If you're over 65, it goes down.
Really?
Mm.
And actually, what is the new growth? That's just anticipated because that's what I thought seemed low, right?
It is very low. We're pushing back on the assessors. I mean, on average, the last 5 years, it's been around 450. Yeah, that's a bogus number.
so the
450,000.
new growth
Yeah.
influences the levy limit, right? So
Well, they make an estimate, and so yeah, potentially it could. So they don't want to be in a position where they've underestimated revenue. That's their excuse for lowballing it.
Okay. And that's just whatever new houses are being built.
Right, which is baloney because I said I drove down Dedham Street, and I can tell you right now, just the houses being built on Dedham Street are going to yield more than that 100,000, and
Right.
they're not in the levy limit right now.
Okay.
And
All
they're
right.
not the only houses being built in Dover.
So is that something to consider as we try to close that three and a half
Well,
million dollar gap?
yeah, we went back. We've
All right.
gone back to them and said they need to give us support for that number because it's not passing our smell test.
Okay. Okay. And there's state aid.
and
Right,
state aid, right?
which should be right. You know, the governor announced state aid, and it's right where we estimated it to be.
And that's mostly the circuit breaker money?
No,
No, it's unrestricted
no.
state aid.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So just for uh,
The circuit breaker money is part of the school budgets, so to
Okay.
speak. I mean, it's not in the revenue.
Gotcha.
And I just want to push once more, Robin, just to clarify, in prior years, circuit breaker money wasn't in the revenue line item, and it also
It's
wasn't in the expense or net expense from the schools either. We purposely excluded it always, and now it is in the net expense item, and it's still not in the revenue. Is that correct?
it's never gonna be in the revenue because it lags and it came back into free cash.
Okay, so, but in the way the schools are now reporting, though, it's
This
netted with the expenses currently in some way, shape, or form. So when we see the school expense line item, that actually now includes
right,
some number,
right, and
whereas in the prior years for 25 and 26, it didn't. So this is an apples and orange comparison a little bit when we look at the overall picture, correct?
so right. So right now the school budget looks to be artificially lower than it was in prior years. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
There's only a 0.2%. That's because circuit breaker is netted. So what we always did before is we estimated circuit breaker and we said we will take whatever we're expecting to come in for circuit breaker and use that to reduce the tax rate. And so in effect, it was showing up as our revenue, but it was in a different line item.
Okay. So it's something that we need to be careful about as we think to this
Well,
year's budget and the gap.
this is the last year. You know, we need to get the free cash number, which hopefully we will have next week.
Okay.
And what's the balance on free cash? In other words,
As I said, we hope to get that number next
oh,
week.
oh, the balance,
Right.
what's in the account?
So you cannot use 100% of your free cash. You need to
Right.
make sure that 15% of your operating budget stays in restricted free cash. So what we have asked to provide is a balance of all of our reserve accounts, so you can see what that is, and also the free cash balance. And then we will tell you what is restricted free cash and what is available to potentially reduce the tax rate.
Okay. Is that, I mean, I don't like, is that like a mystery to go find what the balance is? Can't somebody just like log on to the account and say, oh, it's 6 million?
No, it's an accounting thing. Free, it's not a bank account. It's basically free cash. Part of it is in a bank account. Part of it is whatever budget turnbacks were given, were whatever line items were turned back to the budget. So you need to go through, so you know, the town accountant is trying to estimate what it is, and then it gets certified by the state. So they are going to give us their estimate. So it's not just logging into a bank account.
Gotcha.
You know, there's various pieces.
And we assume it's more than 3,054,000.
Last year I believe it was 9 million.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about this? Expenditures. Questions here?
Woody, could you please enlarge the screen?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
So total municipal budget, 14 million. Education, 25 million. Debt and interest, insurance, 8.5 million. So, oops, sorry. So you can see that right now, the education costs are stable year over year. The total municipal budget is up 4% year over year. But capital requests are up, so that the total funding requirement is up by this 7.5%. This has capital requests of 5.5 million. I think we're still not entirely clear. So I'm not entirely clear what the capital requests are going to be. Any questions about this? So
Woody, the capital requests were what was on the schedule provided to the
yeah, no, I
Collins
know.
Center.
I'm on the capital budget committee, and I feel like people have not really been completely forthcoming about what their capital needs are. The departments haven't been. So these are all just operating requests that may impact the total municipal budget, the operating budget. And these are the capital requests that go into that 5.5 million. We know that Parks and Rec is not asking for 1.3 million. It's more like 300,000 now that they're going to spread their they have three projects and they're going to spread those three projects over the next 3 years. So probably 300 to 400,000 this year. Mish, you correct me if I'm stating this wrong. And then when this was put in, Chickering and the regional school had zero. What we heard last night from Dawn, though, is that uh, the the high school is asking for a new roof, and that is a total of 2 million, of which Dover would pay, I think it's 53%. So slightly over 1 million. Dawn thought that 2 million was probably high, but it's putting it in as a placeholder. But that obviously then uh, negates the scheduling change from Parks and Rec in terms of what the total capital requests are.
And I guess this is one of the things, Woody, like why? So like, was this just published prior to Dawn making that request? Which like how do we go from like saying nothing to, oh, actually there's a $2 million request?
Well, honestly, Kevin, I'm not sure because I was a little taken aback by it last night.
Okay.
I thought the schools had decided that they weren't going to have a significant capital expenditure this year after the turf field last year. What I Don didn't say this explicitly last night, but my impression was that they uh, looked again at the roof. Their original idea was that they were going to do a series of things at the high school, which would include some work on the some replacement of air handlers or air conditioning units, and then in the context of that, they might do the roof. When they went up to look at things more carefully, though, they thought the roof was in worse shape than they had originally thought it to be, and that's what moved them up on the timeline. Still
If I'm
not
not
clear.
if I'm not mistaken, did they like take 800,000 that had supposed to have gone to HVAC and put it towards the track last year?
No.
Oh,
But there was the issue when they've replaced some of the air handling units at the high school already, I think 2 years ago. And when they did that, this is probably more detailed than you want, but the capital budget from Dover pushed them on electrifying. When they got their original cost estimate, they hadn't uh, uh, planned on electrifying. When they went back in with the plan to electrify, the estimate that they got was for 1 million more than they had originally budgeted and what they'd gone to town meeting for.
mm,
So they used money that had previously been budgeted for boiler replacements, which had not been used. And they used what essentially is free cash for them in the school accounts to pay the $1 million difference.
okay.
So
Thanks.
so that's so they're in the middle of the uh, replacement of their air handling units of their HVAC system. So I think the plan would be this year to do the roof, and then next year to do the rest of the HVAC units. But that makes this 5.5 million probably an underestimate. Unclear uh, how much of the 3.5 million in the DPW request could be deferred. Much it the um, fuel island is about 1.75, I think, of that, and the rest is mostly vehicles. So it's possible some of those vehicles could be postponed.
Well, there's $500,000 of culvert replacements
Yeah,
for which
yeah.
Kevin put in for a grant that he believes he's going to get, but the full amount is in there. And then there's $600,000 for a traffic study and fixing the intersection in town, the main intersection in town. We originally got a $300,000 grant. Kevin was able to get $1 million, but there are things that we want to do that won't be covered by the grant. So they're working through the numbers, but they believe ultimately, with respect to the intersection work, they'll only be asking for 300,000, 2 to 300,000.
Any other questions about the capital requests? Okay, so Robin, I'm assuming that one of the things we're going to get from the Collins Center is some advice about how to finance the capital.
Well, clearly we cannot pay for the capital with cash. So the only way we're going to be able to pay for it is with debt. And the question is, how much debt do we want to take on an annual basis, and what the debt service is? So they are going to help us run various scenarios on how we might be able to pay for this. In addition to that, we have told departments that they need to think long and hard about priorities, because looking at our finances, it's getting increasingly more difficult for us to fund all their capital requests in the year in which they're asking for it. So departments are expecting pushback on their capital requests.
Any other questions about the capital?
No, but maybe just a question about like, when is it at the town level where we would say like no to something? Like the town would say, we're not going to approve
Well,
all these trucks?
the process is the same process that we've gone through for forever. Capital budgets is the equivalent of the Warrant Committee for capital requests. So they will vet the requests and then try and see whether or not they're prioritized. And for us, at some point this year, which will be very different to what has happened, is we may have to go back to departments and say we can only spend X on capital. So we may go back and say you just can't have everything you want. Right now there's a prioritization schedule, and everybody has put everything that they need as priority one.
Right.
It's just not happening.
But I
But we
guess,
need to go through the process.
and so Robin, is it just, in other words, like they ask for 3.5 million, the capital budget says we either endorse this or don't as recommendations. And then
Right.
ultimately it's the Board of Selectmen that says, no, you got to go back and sharpen your pencils. We're not going to do this.
Ultimately we're going to say this is all we can bring to town meeting. We will sit with Warrant Committee and decide how much additional debt service we want to add to the budget and what that does to taxpayers' accounts. And then at the end of the day, any department can, there can be a citizen's petition to buy a truck that we said no to. So at town meeting, people could come up and say, well, no, we think we should buy that truck. Or we could say to them, well, it needs to be, the only way we can afford this is through debt. And then town meeting's going to vote for it. And it's most likely going to be excluded. So then people have to vote for it at the ballot too.
Okay. Okay.
There's
You know,
one
and,
other
and
confounder this year, and that is that as with the turf field, uh, Sherburne pays half of the roof on the high school.
Yeah.
right. And
Sherburne's not in a
I
position, we think, to take on another $1 million. So it's quite possible that Sherburne's capital budget committee will say no, they can't do that this year. In which case, we're not going to spend $1 million, obviously, on a roof that's not going to be put on. So I think there's a serious chance that the request for the regional school doesn't get through Sherburne and therefore doesn't appear in our budget.
Right. Okay. All right.
Although it would be excluded debt in Sherburne, so it wouldn't impact
Right.
their levy limit.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? So the 3.5 million is with a lot of qualifiers, right? It's
Yeah.
uh, qualifiers like the new growth, for example. You know, the final numbers on capital and what we do to finance capital, those kinds of things. And then all of those uh, positions or requests that Michael listed that people have that may not end up in the budget because we just don't have the capacity to fund those things.
Right, and there are a couple of other things that we're doing. We asked the town accountant to go back through all prior capital requests because this hasn't happened in a while, and to see if there are any funds that weren't expended because projects came in for less money or we didn't spend everything. And so we'll have that number too, because then we could utilize those excess funds to pay for capital this year. I think we did it a couple of years ago for a truck. Um, and then I asked Chris to look at the health insurance and all insurance lines to make sure that the base on which we're projecting 15% is actually represents our census. So that does represent the premiums that we're paying. And also then to right now it looks like the increase is going to come in at 12% rather than 15%. So he's going to look at that as well. So, we're expecting there to be some savings over there.
But see, this is where I get confused again because as soon as I think I have a handle on it, like, what are you talking about? Like money that we hadn't spent on capital? Isn't that what goes into free cash? Like what?
Capital works differently. Capital, you set aside, so say based upon a proposal, you think a project's going to cost $300,000, but
Yeah.
the project only costs 285.
Yep.
That stays in capital until the town accountant goes through it and deems it to be the project to be closed, and then it gets closed out to free cash. That hasn't happened in a while because of the issues we were having in the town accountant department.
But was this included in what you were when you were saying earlier, free cash isn't just in a bank account. Somebody's gonna have to go back and look at like what
That will
really.
be one of those items, but you
Okay.
don't necessarily need to turn this is where it gets really complicated. You don't necessarily need to return the funds that are in the capital bucket back to free cash. You can say we're going to use these funds to pay for another capital item because it's deemed as capital. But
So
we
they
need to know what funds are gonna, there's not gonna be big amounts there.
right.
But we need to know what's left over because we could use it for some of these other capital. I would be surprised if we could buy a truck with the funds that are left over in Medicaid.
Right. Okay. All right.
Or it could go back to free cash, but we know we need it for capital at this point.
Robin, how far back have these projects not been reconciled?
Excellent question. I'm not sure. Maybe 3 or 4 years.
1978. Oh no.
No,
Okay.
no.
Hmm.
Okay.
We've had quite a bit of staff turnover, which is why we have some of these issues.
Yeah.
But we seem to be in a good place now, but we just have to clean up some of the stuff.
Oh, Woody, I know I was going to ask when you mentioned there was those requests, from the different departments. Those are in those numbers we've just been reviewing, right?
I don't believe all of them are.
So what's in the numbers is level services. I believe that's per your guidance.
Yeah.
What wasn't put into the budget were any new positions or things that increase services. And I'm going from memory. I think from Mike's number, is that around? No, I think the 296 is just new contracts, but those are not in there.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
The new
exactly my
positions.
question. Where do we, I know that there's, for example, police has requested 2 new positions, and I'm sure other
Those
departments have, where do we
Those
see
are
that?
not in the budget. Those are not in the budget.
They're not in the budget.
No,
So
no
when are
new
they
positions were
considered?
put in the budget.
Oh, so
As
they're not being
part,
considered.
right now, they're not being considered. So because my understanding was that was per the guidance letter to separate them. So those are not in the budget right now.
That's right. When we issued our guidance letter, what we specifically said was we want them to come in with a level service budget but that they should entertain 2 options. One is that we needed to actually cut more, and then be below a 2.5% growth, or that we end up with more capability of funding things than we anticipated, and they should identify things that they wanted but were not essential to maintain level service. So some of those things, like the things that the police chief identified in terms of a lieutenant position and that sort of stuff, those are things he would like to do, but are not currently in the budget because they're not level service.
And that's all operating costs we're talking about.
Those are all operating costs.
Okay. So that $3.5 million gap doesn't include the asks that were, or a lot of those asks that were on, like that gap would be going up if we were including these other asks.
That's correct.
Okay.
But there are other things that may reduce that gap, like the new growth and
No,
things.
I understand. Yeah.
And potentially some of the capital requests may end up going down based on Kevin getting more funding, or
Right.
or the schools not being Sherburne not being willing to fund the roof, that sort of things. And we know Park and Rec has already agreed on delaying some of their requests. So we may end up with a capital budget that is less than the 5.5 million that we have listed there. We're just not, it's not clear yet.
Yeah, I understand. But when would we start saying like we're going to add those requests in or not?
It's part of when they come, to do their presentations, if they can justify it or live without it. And at this point, I would say you need to justify these new positions, we're going to have to find savings somewhere else.
Okay. I'm with
But
you.
that's just me personally.
Yeah.
We're not Dover's in a better shape than many of the surrounding towns right
Right.
now. Towns all across the state are having trouble right now. There are a number of towns that are looking for overrides.
Right. Right now, Medfield they they were told to think about what cuts they would make to balance their budget.
And is most of that attributable to inflation exceeding the 2.5%?
Yep, yep.
And the fact that state aid is not keeping up.
As well, right?
In Dover for capital projects, when these get approved, is there a project manager in the particular department or unit that's held responsible for tracking the costs relative to the approved amount so that when they go back and try to do this reconciliation that you referenced, Robin, is that gonna be their point of contact to be able to do it? Or is it we don't know?
So the town accountant will know what went into the count and then what invoices have been paid. And then she will go to the point person in the department and ask whether or not the project is completely closed. And then he or she should be able to say yes or no.
Okay, and then in addition to the yes or no, they can tell you how much it actually costs, and this was the amount of the budget approved, and there's the differential.
I'm not sure the departments can tell you that. The town accountant should be able to tell you that because she will know what was appropriated and what invoices came in that paid for the project. But I would hope the departments know that as well.
Yeah.
You know, I know for many of the big projects for the DPW, we usually pay for a project manager. And so we know where those projects come in at.
And then that little gap between excess capital budget and not necessarily automatically going into free cash. If somebody comes forth and says, "Oh, we want to buy a mower," who makes the decision as to
It
just
needs to get, it needs to get approved. I'm trying to remember, I think we even have to get town meeting approval to use those funds, but I don't remember. So let me double check with Mike.
okay?
You know, on the other side, Robin, I assume some of these projects go over the amount that was approved. How does that work? You got to come back
That's
to
a big
that?
problem. We've had to come back to town meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's been a problem, especially during the COVID years where inflation was running so high.
So do you think people are much more conservative in their estimates when they come forward with a capital project to be approved? So there's more likelihood
Well,
of
we asked them to get proposals. You know, we asked to get a proposal when you come to capital budget so that we can make sure that the amount that's being appropriated at town meeting is an amount for which you can get the project done for. So sometimes what happens is when they go out and get the real proposal, it's higher, so they just don't even start the project because they can't start the project unless they have the funds available. And then they come back to town meeting the following year. Which is why the library HVAC system hasn't been done. Because every time we went out to get the actual bid, it was significantly higher than the proposal we got. And so the town had appropriated less money than what was needed to complete the project.
And many times that's probably a question of the timing between when you actually talked about the project and when you actually go for the
Exactly.
bids and the inflation.
Exactly. Right. And then sometimes the scope changes. So.
You're muted, Woody.
Sorry. So I don't want to spend a lot of time, a lot more time tonight, but
We have another person who joined the meeting here. I'm sorry, Monty.
Oh, Monty looks chill. Monty looks chill. I know I apologize for being on my phone, but I had to eat. I, I've been on back-to-back meetings, so
you guys do way too many meetings. I don't see how you do it.
yeah, today has been exceptionally challenging.
So first review is in about 10 days. So I do want to meet next Wednesday, but I will try and keep it to 30 minutes or less. And then the 9th is our first review, and remember that starts at 6. And then the 11th, we meet in person at the middle school library at 6:30.
Are you you're sending out all these dates or not, or like in one email or something?
I think they were in the minutes, weren't they?
Oh, okay. All right.
There was a
Okay.
schedule
I
at the
think they
back
were
of the
in the-
minutes.
That's right.
So
Now I
that
remember.
that,
Come
that,
on,
prom-
Kevin.
that prompts me to ask if anyone has corrections or additions to the minutes that we sent out. And I assume not. So would someone like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Marty. And a second.
Second,
Thank you, Nina. All right, Nina,
yes.
Mish,
Yeah.
Kevin,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
and Sarah.
Yes.
Great.
And I'd
So-
like to make an offer to Kevin or anybody else. If you want to spend a little bit of time one-on-one and go over the budget, I would be happy to do that with you.
No, I appreciate that, and I thank you for your patience with all my questions. I mean, hey, if I'm going to do this, I want to understand, right? I want to.
No, I know it's good.
Yeah. So, and my level went up exponentially, Woody. So thank you for kind of revisiting that today.
So I think this is incredibly complicated. Every time I go,
Agreed.
It really
Like-
is.
Like Kevin, I don't even know if I gave you the right answer on the tax bill, so I am going to go ask the assessor, and I will make sure that I gave you guys the right answer.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
embarrassed to say all I do is look at the total and pay it.
I'm starting to get it, but then then there's always like, oh, but then when there's the excess capital budgets from projects we didn't complete. Oh, but then there's circuit breaker funds,
Right.
Oh, they put in $1 million, but they're going to get a grant for $1 million, so it's really not $1 million. Like, there's just a lot,
there's a lot.
I know it's a
There's a lot.
ton. It's a ton.
Yeah. So
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Great. And a second?
Second.
Great. Nina,
Yes.
Mish,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
and Sarah.
Aye.
And I'm an enthusiastic yes. Okay, so next Wednesday.
Monty's a yes.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Monty needs to come to all the meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to quiz him now on the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
He's got his license.
All right.